Have you ever been cheated by someone you trusted and wished you could get even? Well, meet Derek. He rented a room in a seemingly ordinary house until he discovered his landlord was secretly running a massive drug operation. After scrolling endlessly through housing listings online, Derek finally found an affordable room in a quiet suburban neighborhood, exactly what he needed. The landlord, who Derek would soon know as LL, seemed friendly enough when they first met. LL was relaxed, casual, and looked like a typical middle-aged guy enjoying a calm suburban life. At first, Derek shrugged it off as typical adult life. Perhaps LL had late shifts or irregular hours. Derek never pried. As long as his living situation remained stable, he wasn't inclined to ask too many questions. After all, it wasn't his business what LL did in his spare time. He didn't ask too many questions, which suited Derek just fine. He'd vanish into the basement for long hours, or have visitors who arrive quietly in the dead of night. Still, he reminded himself he was just renting a room, and whatever LL did outside of their arrangement wasn't his concern. After all, LL had been nothing but polite and accommodating to Derek. A new opportunity. Finally, a better-paying job that would significantly improve his quality of life. Derek was thrilled. This was exactly what he'd been working toward. With optimism and gratitude, he informed LL he would soon be moving out. LL congratulated him warmly, saying there would be no problem returning Derek's deposit promptly. LL even occasionally offered Derek leftover pizza or shared a few beers on weekends, maintaining a casual and friendly dynamic. Occasionally, Derek caught a faint whiff of something unusual, earthy scents or weird chemical smells lingering in the hallway. He kept his head down, stayed focused on work, and saved what little he could. He was working toward better opportunities, always hoping for that promotion or new job that could lead him to something bigger and better. He brushed it aside, blaming his imagination or attributing it to typical household odors. He told himself that as long as the rent was paid, the utilities worked, and Nello didn't bother him, none of this mattered. Everything was fine until Derek moved out and was refused a secured deposit. What started as a $350 loss quickly escalated into an epic revenge plot involving the agents, RTF raids, and thousands of dollars in reward money. Stick around, because this revenge is as sweet as it is explosive, and Derek's landlord is about to learn that betrayal has serious consequences. Life was simple but tight for Derek. Fresh out of college and working an entry-level job, his paycheck barely covered rent, food, and bills. When Derek moved in, he felt relieved. The house was spacious and surprisingly well, and Derek had his own private room with plenty of space to unwind after long workdays. Ella lived in another part of the house and mostly kept to himself, occasionally chatting in the kitchen or on weekends when their paths crossed. It seemed like the perfect arrangement, respectful, affordable, and hassle-free. Initially, everything went smoothly. Derek always paid his rent promptly on the first of every month, and LL never had any complaints or issues. Privacy was always respected, and Derek enjoyed the rare feeling of independence without having someone constantly breathing down his neck. After the chaos of roommates during college, this was a breath of fresh air. He had finally found a comfortable balance between work and rest, and his landlord seemed genuinely decent. About a month into living there, Derek did start to notice that LL had odd hours and visitors coming at strange times. But as days turned into weeks, LL's routines got stranger. However, Derek couldn't entirely dismiss the nagging feeling that something wasn't quite right. Despite the minor red flags, Derek continued his routine without issues for months. And sure enough, after 6 months of living there, Derek's patience and persistence paid off. Little did Derek know, this promise was the beginning of a twisted betrayal, and his friendly landlord was about to become the target of a revenge plot he never saw coming. The first indication Derek had that something was deeply wrong happened entirely by accident. One quiet night, around 2 months into living at LL's house, Derek had trouble sleeping, restless. He decided to grab a quick snack from the kitchen. The house was eerily silent. The only sounds were distant hums of appliances and the occasional creaking floorboards under his feet. While rummaging quietly through the fridge, Derek suddenly heard muffled voices coming from the basement. Curiosity piqued. He paused, sandwich ingredients forgotten in his hand. Inside was a staggering sight: multiple firearms stacked haphazardly, clearly unregistered and illegal. LL bragged openly, mentioning how easy it was to buy guns without paperwork and laughing off the seriousness of his crimes. Derek's mind raced with thoughts of what he'd unwittingly gotten himself involved in. He knew immediately that this went far beyond a small-time operation, and soon enough, that moment would come triggered by L's own betrayal. This was a full-blown drug distribution ring. dangerously mixed with illegal weapons, and Derek had unknowingly been sleeping mere feet above it all. Inside, though, he counted the days until he could safely move out. Each workday felt painfully slow, his entry-level position hardly paying enough to scrape by, let alone save for a quick escape. Elo reacted with apparent warmth, congratulating Derek on his success, and reminding him kindly that he'd get his $350 security deposit back promptly once he left. He avoided interacting too much with LL, cautious to keep things simple and straightforward until he could safely disappear from the landlord's dangerous orbit. Derek believed him, mostly because, despite everything he discovered, LL had never been openly hostile or suspicious. Before leaving, Derek reminded LL gently about the deposit, emphasizing how much he appreciated LL's hospitality and cooperation over the past months. LL smiled warmly, shook Derek's hand firmly, and reassured him that he'd have the deposit ready within a week. No problem. The week passed with no word. Derek shrugged it off initially, thinking LL might have simply forgotten or gotten busy. After all, LL seemed friendly enough, despite his hidden darkness. But another week slipped by with radio silence, and Derek started to feel uneasy. And suddenly, that small betrayal ignited a flame in Derek, sparking a determination not just for justice, but for revenge. Derek naively assumed LL valued discretion and keeping their relationship cordial enough to avoid any complications. His new life was about to start, free from the anxiety and dread he'd carried for months. The excitement of the new job, combined with the feeling of liberation from LL's dangerous world, filled Derek with a renewed sense of optimism. LL responded quickly, offering apologies and promising he'd deliver the money the following week. Derek accepted this explanation, relieved the issues seemed minor. But as days turned into weeks and weeks turned into 2 full months, Derek realized with sinking dread LL had no intention of returning his money. But Derek kept his head down, worked diligently, and continued quietly documenting everything happening at home. Listening closer, he caught faint snippets of conversation talk about weights, strains, and something about good product. He received an unexpected email from a company he'd nearly forgotten about. Within a week, he was offered the job, which came with a substantial pay increase enough for Derek to immediately start planning his escape from LL's twisted household. Derek eagerly accepted the offer, relief flooding through him like fresh air. He was ecstatic, knowing he could soon leave behind the tension and paranoia that had defined his life for months. The email offered him an interview for a role with better pay, benefits, and most importantly the opportunity to finally leave his troubling situation behind. Derek prepared diligently for the interview, knowing this could be the key to his freedom. When LL briefly opened the door, Derek glimpsed an alarming sight: used crack pipes, pills scattered around, and evidence of heavier drug use. Derek realized with sickening clarity just how deep LL was into this dangerous lifestyle. This wasn't just casual drug use or selling a little pot. This was a life fully immersed in crime and substance abuse, barely hidden beneath the veneer of suburban normality. Derek immediately recognized the coded language. His heart sank, realizing the casual arrangement he'd enjoyed was hiding something far darker beneath the surface. Once back in his room, Derek's heart pounded furiously in his chest. He documented everything meticulously, hiding the evidence safely, aware that one day this knowledge might become incredibly valuable. He was terrified. He knew he was living in the heart of a criminal enterprise. One slip, one wrong comment, and things could turn dangerously violent. But Derek decided to keep quiet. He was trapped, financially strapped, and couldn't afford to move out immediately. So he resolved to maintain a calm exterior, quietly observing and absorbing every detail he could. He stood frozen, barely breathing, until he heard footsteps heading toward the basement stairs. Panicked, Derek quickly and quietly retreated back to his room, the sandwich entirely forgotten. From that night onward, Derek became hyper-aware of LL's behaviors. L's casual lifestyle suddenly took on a sinister hue. As Derek noticed, even stranger patterns emerged. LL invited Derek down to the basement, seemingly oblivious to the enormous risk he was taking. There, behind a hastily constructed wooden partition, were rows upon rows of marijuana plants, thriving under bright buzzing grow lights. The air was thick with the sharp, pungent aroma of cannabis. LL, completely at ease, proudly showed off his illicit garden, pointing to different strains and explaining with eerie calmness how profitable his enterprise was. Derek felt the bile rise in his throat, but kept a composed facade. Derek followed cautiously, feigning calm even as alarm bells blared loudly in his head. Visitors came more frequently, always discreetly parking a block or two away before slipping quietly into the house through the back entrance. Derek's landlord always seemed jittery, anxious, eyes bloodshot or pupils dilated whenever Derek bumped into him in the hallways. As time passed, Derek became increasingly uneasy. But one afternoon, Elo casually revealed his entire operation to Derek, an act of arrogant trust that would later become his downfall. What Derek saw downstairs left him speechless. Elo then casually opened a locked closet nearby. As if that wasn't enough, Elo casually gestured toward another room, mentioning it was a private space he used to unwind. Despite Derek's shock, he managed to nod politely, playing along just enough to get back upstairs safely. Over the next several months, Derek silently noted everything he saw. The times LL's dealer arrived, the strange cars parked nearby, even secretly photographing the marijuana plants during a rare opportunity when Elo was out. Little did Elo know, his seemingly harmless tenant had become a ticking time bomb, waiting for just the right moment to use his newfound knowledge. Despite the anxiety bubbling beneath the surface due to Elo's dangerous secret, Derek remained outwardly calm, carefully maintaining the facade of normalcy. Finally, after months of searching and applying to various jobs, Derek's luck turned. When the day arrived, Derek aced the interview. With his new job secured, Derek quickly informed Elle that he'd be moving out at the end of the month. The next couple of weeks passed quickly, Derek quietly packing his belongings each night, eager to finally leave the oppressive atmosphere behind. Finally, moving day arrived. Derek quickly and quietly packed his car, eager to distance himself as soon as possible from the potential danger lurking just below his former room. With that promise secured, Derek drove away, a wave of relief washing over him. It felt like he had escaped a ticking time bomb. But as Derek settled into his new home, beginning his job and adjusting to a brighter future, one issue lingered: the promised return of his deposit. He messaged LL politely, reminding him about the deposit. It dawned on Derek with chilling clarity that he'd been betrayed, manipulated, and taken advantage of. Derek had always considered himself a patient guy, the type who'd give anyone the benefit of the doubt. He'd tolerated LL's strange lifestyle, dangerous activities, and unsettling behaviors, always rationalizing it as a necessary evil to survive financially. But the repeated broken promises about returning the deposit were testing his patience like nothing before. After 2 months, Derek's polite reminders turned into more direct texts. LL's replies, initially apologetic and reassuring, gradually became shorter and more dismissive. All the friendly smiles, casual conversations, even shared beers suddenly felt like calculated manipulation. L's betrayal wasn't merely financial. It was a violation of trust, dignity, and respect. Elo had foolishly exposed every detail of his criminal enterprise to Derek, assuming his tenant posed no threat. In that moment, Derek realized he possessed a weapon far more powerful than angry messages or confrontations. LL had gambled that Derek would stay quiet, counting on his silence as a safety net for his dangerous secrets. Now LL's arrogance would be his downfall. Derek would not just get even, he would dismantle LL's entire world. He had detailed, damning evidence of LL's crimes: the drugs, the illegal weapons, even the suspicious visitors and dealers frequenting the house, especially one against someone deeply involved in illegal activities. He retrieved hidden files from his phone and laptop, carefully reviewing each photograph. Timestamp. Derek meticulously prepared his tip. He methodically filled out the Crime Stoppers form, laying out each detail clearly and concisely. Derek included exact addresses, detailed descriptions of LL, his associate, and explicit information about the type and quantity of drugs and firearms present. He attached the incriminating photos he'd risked taking, confident these would be undeniable proof that couldn't be dismissed. Derek imagined L's full sense of security. Late one evening, an alert flashed on Derek's phone. A headline from his hometown's local news site immediately grabbed his attention. L's arrogance had finally caught up to him, and Derek was the unseen architect of his spectacular downfall. Elo had learned the harshest lesson of all: never underestimate someone you've wronged. Derek had turned his betrayal and frustration into cold, calculated revenge, justice delivered with devastating precision. The words bled out, bold and unmistakable. Massive drug operation busted by SWAT team in quiet suburban neighborhood. Derek's heart raced, clicking through quickly. His eyes scanned the details. The address matched perfectly. Elo's name was front and center, followed by shocking details of a pre-dawn raid involving SWAT, D, and even a TF agents. L probably felt untouchable, continuing his reckless lifestyle without knowing he'd already been marked for destruction. Derek smiled at the thought, relishing how sweet and shocking El's downfall would ultimately be. He knew Ella would never see it coming. He had confidently dismissed Derek as harmless, easily bullied, and powerless. That arrogance would soon cost him everything. Derek even suggested the optimal times for a raid: early mornings when LL and his accomplices were most likely to be asleep or less vigilant. Every aspect was calculated for maximum impact. And detailed note, Derek felt a surge of adrenaline. Derek knew investigations took time. Law enforcement had to verify the evidence, obtain warrants, and plan their operation carefully. But Derek was patient. Every day, he monitored local news sites, police reports, and community newsletters. He even asked his parents, who lived nearby, to forward any local updates, pretending it was simply curiosity about neighborhood happenings. Derek's patience wasn't passive, it was active, vigilant, and strategic. The anonymity offered by Crime Stoppers meant his involvement was shielded. Derek heard nothing at first, and doubt began to creep in. Had he done enough? Was LL somehow avoiding scrutiny? But Derek quickly dismissed these doubts. He knew authorities needed absolute certainty to act. A case of this magnitude, involving narcotics, illegal firearms, and clear distribution, was too serious for rushed action. Eliminating risk. Still, Derek was careful. He triple-checked every field, reviewed every piece of evidence again, and finally pressed the submit button with satisfaction and relief. Derek had been thorough, noting even seemingly trivial details like the dates and times LL's dealer showed up, descriptions of suspicious cars, license plates, and secret late-night exchanges in the driveway, had to be executed with absolute precision. This wasn't the time for impulsiveness or petty vandalism. Derek carefully researched how best to deliver this evidence to authorities. He knew simply calling the police might result in superficial attention potentially ignored or investigated too slowly. Derek needed leverage, urgency, and incentive. That's when his research brought him to Crime Stoppers, a confidential, anonymous platform dedicated to rewarding citizens who provided tips leading to arrests and convictions. Derek's eyes lit up as he read the fine print. $1,000 reward for credible tips. The amount instantly caught his attention. Not only could Derek exact justice, but he'd also make nearly triple the amount Elo had stolen from him. The poetic justice of profiting directly from Malel's downfall brought Derek immense satisfaction. This was about justice, careful, strategic, and devastatingly effective. LL had made a critical mistake. He underestimated Derek's quiet observation skills and willingness to strike back. Derek planned to use that oversight to his full advantage. The photographs, timestamps, suspicious activity, logs, all carefully preserved evidence now felt like potent ammunition. As his fingers flew across the keyboard, Derek's anger transformed into focused resolve. He began crafting a narrative. He organized his notes chronologically, highlighting patterns and details that law enforcement would find compelling. It wasn't enough to accuse L. Derek needed ironclad evidence. The photos he'd secretly taken of LL's marijuana plants and the extensive weapons stash, his crown jewels, visual proof of a dangerous and highly illegal operation happening beneath LLSC suburban facade. He wasn't just settling a petty financial dispute. He was waging a moral war against LL's arrogant abuse of power. Derek had played fair, kept his head down, and followed the rules. But Derek's anger, intelligence, and resourcefulness would soon prove devastating. Derek felt an exhilarating surge of power and purpose. L's betrayal had sparked a firestorm, and Derek was now ready to deliver a brutal reckoning that would destroy LL's entire life. Or he could strike back, exposing L's crimes and teaching him a harsh lesson about betrayal and consequences. Derek weighed his options briefly, but his anger made the decision crystal clear. He was done being a victim. Yet Elo had taken advantage of his kindness, assuming Derek was harmless and wouldn't dare retaliate. It was this assumption, this arrogance, that stoked Derek's determination to settle the score. Derek realized Elo had carefully cultivated an atmosphere of false trust, exploiting Derek's goodwill to keep him quiet and cooperative. He felt foolish and betrayed, his anger intensifying with each passing thought. After several unanswered calls, Derek realized Elo was deliberately avoiding him. The silence was deafening, amplifying Derek's growing anger. He felt humiliated, like he'd been tricked, robbed, and discarded without a second thought. And that feeling quickly escalated from irritation into a simmering, boiling fury. "Next week, I promise," became LL's default response, always next week. Yet next week never arrived. Frustration built inside Derek as he felt himself becoming the victim of Elle's lies. He had worked hard for that $350 deposit, which represented not only money but a basic principle of respect and fairness. Finally, Derek decided to call LL directly, determined to confront him. Days later, Derek tried once more to contact LL. This time, the message didn't go through. Derek stared at his phone, confused at first. Then a harsh realization set in. LL had blocked him. Derek's rage surged instantly. Blocking his number felt like the ultimate insult, a brazen admission that L had no intention of ever returning the deposit. It was blatant disrespect, a smug, cowardly attempt to brush Derek aside as if he meant nothing. That night, unable to sleep and consumed by anger, Derek began reflecting on every interaction he'd had with LL. The situation wasn't just about the money anymore, it was personal. As he sat awake, seething with frustration, Derek suddenly remembered something vital. Derek knew he had a choice to make. He could walk away, swallow his pride, and let LL continue his reckless, criminal lifestyle. The $350 wasn't a fortune, but Derek knew justice and revenge had no price tag. With quiet determination, Derek opened his laptop, preparing to meticulously document everything he'd gathered over months. LL had underestimated Derek's capacity for retaliation, seeing only an easy target. Derek knew that revenge. First, Derek gathered every shred of evidence he had meticulously documented during his stay at L's house. As Derek compiled this information, next, driven by renewed purpose, submitting the tip. Now came the hardest part: waiting. Weeks turned into months. During this time, for months after submitting the tip, Derek's patience finally paid off. The wave of relief, satisfaction, and triumph that washed over Derek in that moment was indescribable. Now, Derek waited only to collect his reward, his revenge complete. With LL's criminal empire publicly crumbling, Derek felt triumphant. But there was still a crucial step left: securing the promised reward money from Crime Stoppers. He'd carefully laid out his evidence, provided meticulous details, and watched LL's downfall unfold from afar. But Derek knew to finalize this victory, he needed to ensure his involvement remained anonymous, while still collecting the $1,000 he'd deep promised. Shortly after seeing LL's arrest in the news, Derek received an encrypted email notification from Crime Stoppers. His heart raced with excitement and curiosity. The message stated that the information he provided had directly contributed to the arrest and seizure of a significant amount of illegal drugs and firearms. He had done it, the tip had been successful, and Derek was officially entitled to the reward. He opened the envelope discreetly, and there, crisp and neat, was $1,000 in cash, nearly triple the amount LL had originally owed him. LL was now facing decades in prison, his drug empire dismantled, and his life forever destroyed. By exposing L's dangerous criminal activities, Derek had helped clean up a dangerous element lurking in his community. The weapons seized would no longer threaten innocent lives. The drugs intercepted wouldn't poison his neighborhood. Derek realized his revenge had inadvertently contributed positively, removing a serious threat from his hometown. Early hours before dawn, the raid began quietly, almost silently, with tactical units assembling nearby around 3 in the morning. D agents had been gathering intelligence for weeks, verifying Derek's tip and carefully documenting LO's dangerous network. The case had quickly escalated. He shouted, demanding answers, pleading innocence, even as officers methodically began tearing through the house. Rows upon rows of marijuana plants, carefully cultivated under specialized grow lights, awaited harvest and distribution. Officers confiscated the plants, documenting each carefully as evidence of drug manufacturing and intent to distribute. Agents documented evidence of hard drugs like crack cocaine, ecstasy pills, and paraphernalia littered across tables and floors. It was a clear sign LL's activities went beyond marijuana. He was deeply involved in broader narcotics distribution and use. In interrogation rooms, LL initially tried denying involvement, desperately blaming associates and fabricating stories. But faced with overwhelming evidence, authorities had everything they needed, largely thanks to Derek's meticulously detailed tip, which had provided them the critical starting point to unravel LL's elaborate network. His revenge wasn't just personal, it had profound implications, protecting countless innocent people. LL's arrest was a dramatic conclusion to months of meticulous plotting, patience, and strategic action. Derek's carefully orchestrated revenge had delivered swift, severe, and lasting justice, proving once and for all that betrayal carried heavy consequences. The scope and gravity of the raid became abundantly clear, shocking even seasoned agents. surveillance operations Derek unknowingly helped initiate exposed an entire chain of distribution, dismantling not just LL's operation, but also a broader criminal network threatening the community. Given the extensive evidence and severity of crimes, prosecutors predicted Allah would face decades in prison. The community was shaken but relieved. Grateful authorities had removed a significant threat from their midst. The success of this coordinated operation was directly credited to Derek's precise, detailed intelligence. The sheer volume seized confirmed this wasn't a small-time operation. It was a major criminal enterprise disguised behind LL's suburban facade. They had clear instructions, secure evidence, immediately drugs, weapons, cash, and digital records. Every corner of LL's house was methodically searched and documented, each item meticulously bagged, tagged, and labeled as evidence, attracting attention from multiple agencies due to the seriousness of LL's crimes: drug trafficking, weapon possession. Agents seized pistols, rifles, shotguns, ammunition, and even semi-automatic weapons. Many were unregistered or stolen, further escalating the seriousness of LL's charges. The dangerous mixture of firearms and drugs instantly raised the stakes, bringing ATF's full attention and ensuring severe federal charges. And distribution. LL had unwittingly become a priority target. Many expressed shock and disbelief, never suspecting LL's seemingly quiet, friendly demeanor masked such dangerous secrets. News reporters quickly arrived, documenting the dramatic raid as it unfolded, interviewing neighbors and capturing footage of LL, handcuffed, humiliated, and utterly defeated, a clear and present danger to public safety, precisely when Derek had suggested LL would be vulnerable. Derek knew this from months of observing LL's routine. Officers smashed through the front door, battering rams shattering the silence. Simultaneously, others breached the back entrance and basement doors. Within seconds, flashbang grenades exploded, blinding lights and deafening bangs, disorienting anyone inside. The element of surprise was complete. LL and his associates had no time to react, let alone fight back. The raid began. Neighbors described the scene later as something straight from a movie. Vehicles silently surrounding LL's house, engines off, lights dimmed. Patrons and ATF officers, equipped in tactical gear and heavily armed, moved in formation, ready for any possible confrontation. SWAT units took positions at strategic entry points, prepared for resistance. They knew LL's stash of firearms posed significant risk, and they anticipated potential violence. LL was predictable, sleeping deeply after long nights of drug use and distribution, and now that predictability became his downfall. Derek had turned LL's selfish betrayal into personal triumph and financial gain. It was poetic justice of the highest order, and Derek savored every moment of it, and even bragged openly about his illegal operations. LL's arrogant disregard for caution made the case ironclad, allowing officers to swiftly obtain the necessary search warrants for drugs, weapons, and any evidence of distribution and sales. Derek let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding, feeling immense satisfaction flood through him. This wasn't just money, it was symbolic justice, compensation for being deceived, betrayed, and disrespected by LL. But the message also provided clear instructions on how to discreetly claim his reward without compromising his identity. The procedure required careful coordination. Derek was instructed to call a secured number provided in the email. When he dialed, a calm voice confirmed his tip number and immediately provided Derek with detailed instructions. He also chose to save most of it, turning LL's betrayal into a small investment in his future. Every dollar felt like another step forward, away from the toxic environment he'd escaped and toward greater stability. Crime Stoppers arranged for the money to be delivered discreetly through a trusted local intermediary. He'd turned a bitter betrayal into a rewarding victory, teaching LL an unforgettable lesson. Actions have consequences, especially when underestimating someone willing to fight back. Derek had not only reclaimed his lost money, he'd taken control, rewritten the rules, and emerged as the victor. The trap had been perfectly set, expertly sprung, and Derek was finally able to walk away victorious. They instructed Derek to visit a specific nearby location, a small, nondescript convenience store, and provide a prearranged code word to the cashier, who would then discreetly pass him an envelope containing the reward money. Derek agreed readily, impressed by the professionalism and careful planning behind every step. They explained the multiple ways Derek could claim the reward anonymously, emphasizing their commitment to confidentiality. Derek felt reassured, his anxiety diminishing as he realized how carefully Crime Stoppers protected informants. Given the sensitive nature of the situation, Derek chose to collect the reward through a secure cash pickup. On the designated day, Derek felt a surge of adrenaline as he approached the store. He knew this was a moment he'd long anticipated, a final payoff for months of patience and meticulous planning. Inside, Derek calmly approached the cashier, masking his nervousness behind a casual smile. He quietly uttered the code phrase provided by Crime Stoppers, his heart pounding in his chest. The cashier, expression neutral, nodded slightly and handed Derek a sealed envelope without comment. Derek thanked him briefly, maintaining a casual demeanor as he exited the store, envelope safely tucked into his pocket. Outside, Derek quickly walked a few blocks away before finally pausing. With the money securely in hand, Derek returned home feeling lighter, almost euphoric. Yet Derek also felt a deeper sense of satisfaction that went beyond personal revenge. Returning to normal life, Derek decided to use part of his reward to treat himself, viewing it as well-earned compensation. In the end, Derek's carefully laid trap succeeded beyond his wildest expectations. When the police finally descended on LL's quiet suburban home, they came with overwhelming force and determination. The operation was executed in the dark, according to detailed reports Derek read later. The authorities had secured a wiretap on LL's phone, listening in as he carelessly discussed drug deals, weapon purchases. Around 4:30 a.m., without warning, inside, the scene was chaotic. LL was reportedly pulled from his bed, confused, terrified, and helplessly compliant as agents swiftly cuffed him. In the basement, agents discovered the heart of LL's drug operation, just as Derek had described in his tip. Nearby, agents uncovered the weapons cache Derek had warned them about, a chilling arsenal of illegal firearms, stacked haphazardly in a locked room. The drug den room Derek had glimpsed months before revealed even darker realities. Outside, the scene drew attention from neighbors, awakened by flashing lights, shouted commands, and the surreal sight of their quiet neighborhood suddenly overtaken by authorities. Police reports would later detail LL's bewilderment and panic. The raid extended beyond L's house. Authorities swiftly apprehended LL's primary drug dealer, arrested at his home simultaneously. LL was formally charged with multiple felonies, including possession and distribution of narcotics, possession of illegal firearms, and conspiracy. When Derek finally saw these details reported online, he felt deeply satisfied. The aftermath of LL's arrest was swift and relentless. As Derek read about the charges filed against his former landlord, a deep sense of vindication surged within him. L's arrogant disregard for others and his criminal lifestyle had finally caught up to him. He learned LL's attempts to bargain or plead for leniency were met with firm rejection from prosecutors. Neighbors expressed shock at discovering LL's dark secrets hidden in plain sight, voicing appreciation toward authorities for quickly dismantling a significant threat. His revenge had not only reclaimed the money LL wrongfully withheld, but it also brought meaningful, positive impact to countless innocent lives. Derek read online how LL received a harsh sentence, 45 years in federal prison with little chance for parole. The sentencing judge emphasized the severity of LL's actions, distributing dangerous drugs, recklessly possessing illegal firearms, and endangering the community. LL's once seemingly invincible lifestyle collapsed entirely, leaving him powerless, humiliated, and punished. He had reclaimed something even more valuable: his dignity and sense of justice. His careful plotting, strategic patience, and meticulous actions had produced results beyond his initial expectations. His revenge was complete, thorough, and victorious. Justice had prevailed decisively, teaching LL and anyone else paying attention a crucial lesson: never underestimate someone determined to right a wrong. LL's punishment was severe, but fitting justice genuinely served, sending a powerful message that betrayal, arrogance, and crime carried heavy consequences. LL had betrayed trust, respect, and basic human decency, assuming Derek would quietly accept mistreatment. Instead, Derek responded with strength, resourcefulness, and unflinching courage, ultimately exposing and dismantling LL's dangerous criminal empire. Derek found comfort knowing his actions likely prevented violence, addiction, and further crimes within his former neighborhood. LL had foolishly underestimated Derek, assuming he was harmless and inconsequential. That arrogance had ultimately led to LL's downfall. Financially, he had gained far more than LL's petty theft, transforming betrayal into a lucrative victory. He used the money wisely, investing in his future, taking pride in knowing every dollar represented justice served. Derek had patiently crafted a calculated revenge, leveraging the truth against L's lies, justice against LL's crimes. Now, Derek could finally move forward, knowing LL would spend decades reflecting bitterly on his own mistakes. His choice to fight back, rather than quietly accepting L's mistreatment, it had produced tangible good, a fact Derek carried with genuine pride. Many questioned how they'd missed signs of such a dangerous operation, praising law enforcement's decisive action. News articles celebrated the effective collaboration between Crime Stoppers, the DATF, and local police, highlighting how a single anonymous tip had triggered a successful chain of events that ultimately made their community safer. LL, once arrogant and untouchable in his mind, was now completely at the mercy of the justice system, a harsh reality he clearly struggled to accept. LL's previous bravado vanished quickly as he faced a stark reality. Decades behind bars with no easy escape. Justice had been served, decisively and publicly, in a way Derek had scarcely dared to imagine when he first decided to act. LL was formally indicted on multiple felony charges, including drug trafficking, possession of illegal firearms, conspiracy to distribute narcotics, and even additional charges related to stolen weapons. The sheer volume of evidence collected during the raid: marijuana plants, crack cocaine, ecstasy, illegal firearms, and thousands of dollars in cash sealed LL's fate. There was no denying or negotiating his way out. The evidence was overwhelming, meticulously documented, and carefully presented by prosecutors determined to hold him fully accountable. Derek followed the legal proceedings closely from afar, tracking updates through local news outlets and community forums. The community, too, responded with relief and gratitude. Knowing his anonymous role had sparked this change, Derek felt immense pride. Finally, after months of hearings, LL's trial concluded swiftly due to the undeniable mountain of evidence. When Derek learned about L's lengthy sentence, he felt a wave of emotional closure. Additionally, Derek had profited directly from his revenge, earning $1,000 through Crime Stoppers for his courageous, anonymous tip. But Derek's satisfaction extended far beyond money or personal revenge. Derek realized revenge, when rooted in genuine justice, had immense power. As Derek closed the final news article detailing LL's sentencing, he allowed himself a moment of quiet satisfaction. The ripple effect of LL's dramatic arrest quickly spread throughout the community, creating waves of surprise, relief, and gratitude. Derek's actions, though anonymous, had sparked a profound, positive change that went far beyond his original quest for personal justice. In the immediate aftermath of the raid, neighbors expressed disbelief that such a major criminal operation had been operating unnoticed in their peaceful suburb. The shocking revelation prompted widespread reflection, leading residents to reevaluate their sense of safety and vigilance. Crime Stoppers saw a notable increase in tips following the raid, as community members felt empowered to take action against crime in their neighborhoods. Officers repeatedly emphasized how community tips, no matter how small, could drastically improve public safety. Drug trafficking and related petty crimes diminished significantly following the raid, creating a noticeable improvement in neighborhood safety. He recognized his role had been a catalyst, initiating a crucial shift toward awareness, cooperation, and genuine community empowerment. He'd inadvertently helped rebuild community trust, inspired citizen vigilance, and significantly improved public safety. His revenge, initially personal and narrow, had expanded into something far more meaningful. True justice and collective strength, reminding everyone that even the smallest actions could produce profound impacts. While Derek's primary motivation had been personal revenge, the unintended consequences: stronger, safer, and more unified neighborhood was incredibly fulfilling. Families felt more secure, confident their children could safely play outside without fear of encountering dangerous substances or weapons. Derek turned betrayal into victory, teaching LL an unforgettable lesson. If you enjoyed seeing justice prevail, smash the like button, subscribe for more epic revenge stories, and remember, sometimes karma needs a little help. See you in the next thrilling tale. Local schools even held assemblies about drug prevention, directly referencing the recent arrests as proof of the dangers lurking beneath ordinary appearances. LL's arrest became a symbol of proactive citizenship, a vivid demonstration that ordinary residents possessed the power to significantly influence their communities. Well, authorities praised Derek's anonymous bravery, though his identity remained protected, underscoring the importance and effectiveness of citizen vigilance. Derek noticed through online forums how neighbors began supporting each other more openly, rebuilding a sense of trust and solidarity that LL's criminal enterprise had threatened to erode. The arrest was a wake-up call, encouraging everyone to take collective responsibility for maintaining their community's safety. Local authorities took advantage of this heightened awareness, hosting community meetings and workshops on spotting suspicious activities and encouraging residents to be proactive in reporting unusual behaviors. Residents became more engaged, strengthening neighborhood watch groups and increasing communication with local police. Media coverage reinforced this positive shift, highlighting how one anonymous tip had effectively dismantled a dangerous drug and weapons network. Local law enforcement agencies used LL's downfall as a significant example of the impact community involvement could achieve. Additionally, LL's removal from the community had immediate, tangible benefits. Derek found quiet satisfaction watching his former neighborhood flourish in L's absence. Reflecting privately, Derek understood his actions had reached far beyond reclaiming his lost deposit. As Derek continued moving forward, he carried pride knowing his anonymous decision had permanently transformed a community for the better, an unexpected yet deeply rewarding legacy born from a simple act of courageous revenge. Revenge might be sweet, but justice is even sweeter.